I started on Threads with 17 followers. And now it's been 3,000 hours on Threads, building the school community about Threads, and I'm at 13,500. What no one sees is what I call the 3 AM meltdowns. What we're about to go through is really a brutally honest reflection of what it's like to grow on Threads. The algorithm mind fucks, because these are the things that no one else talks about. What I've done is condensed 7 unfiltered truths about Threads. And honestly, I wish I knew these on day one, because maybe if you are aware of these now, you might actually reconsider the path that you're on. And this is coming from a place of, I think we owe you an obligation to give you all the facts. And there are some facts that aren't going to sit right with you. I'll leave that up to you, but here they are. And also, if you're going to stick around until the end, I'm going to show you a $200 experiment that changed how I post forever. And this is $200 that I spent over the last week alongside the 15 or so hours testing this experiment. Could save you months of wasted effort. I know it would have saved me a lot of time and money, and I thought it was pretty cool. So stick around for that. But let's get into the 7 unfiltered truths. So the first one, and just to confirm, my screen is not sharing anymore. Is that right? So these are the 7 unfiltered truths. The first one is what I'm calling Bonnie Blue was right. Some of you will know what I'm talking about. Some of you will have no clue. The context here, I'll give you like the name, the idea of who this person is if you haven't heard of her. But what this rule basically means, this truth, is that most creators try to please everyone, and that is why no one remembers them. Algorithms are ruthless, and they reward polarizing takes, not the noise. You need to be the signal through the noise. That's what this unfiltered truth 1 is. Now, why did I call it Bonnie Blue was right? Basically, Bonnie Blue went mega viral a few months ago. She's an OnlyFans creator in the UK. She broke some crazy world record of sleeping with 1,000 men in 24 hours. I'd honestly be surprised if you haven't heard of her, because her name was everywhere. That is what it takes. Now, it's not to sleep with 1,000 people, but if you think about taking it to the nth degree, as far as possible to the extreme, that level of extremity resulted in virality, and a high level of virality. You see what I'm saying here? Bonnie Blue was right, not for what she did, but the underlying principle when you go deep, deep, deep down, and what she got as a result of it. And this is why it's an unfiltered truth, because that's what game we are playing here. Now, I really want to be clear, because this isn't all, it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be the Bonnie Blue approach, because that would be the controversial take, right? But you don't have to do it that way. You can do it through being super vulnerable or being super consistent. That is how you stand out. Those 3 key ingredients is controversy, vulnerability, consistency. You can blend all 3 of them. You can blend 2 of them, or you just go for one. Personally, I like the vulnerability and consistency part, and maybe a little sprinkle of controversy, but obviously nowhere on the same level as Bonnie Blue. But it's a harsh truth, because you've probably felt it. You need to write confidently online if you want to be the signal through the noise, and that involves stretching the limits of your own belief system. Sometimes you can go too far. I first realized this back in 2013 when I started on Threads, and it was my first post that went viral. It was about the education system and how I thought that it was a load of bullshit, because I spent 6 years and $70,000 getting 2 law degrees that didn't have a single form of practical real world experience. And then I went out and started doing internships and stuff that weren't facilitated through the university. I'm like, I know nothing, And all of what we've learned is not actually applying here. Point being, it pissed a lot of people off. And that was the first time I realized that, like, before, up until that point, I'd just been posting mid content and getting ordinary results. Then with this college post, call that magnetic content, and I got, depending on which way you look at it, extraordinary results. How does this tie into threads growth? If you polarize, you're not putting someone on the fence. They either are against you or for you. And if they're for you, they follow you. If they're against you, they reply. And so that virality wave begins. It's an unfiltered truth because it's just the way this works. I've seen this since day one. I started the first Threads newsletter called How to Win Friends, November 2023. And that involved me looking at 3 top posts over the past week and dissecting what made them do well. An ingredient among all 3 of the posts was controversy. It's as true today as it was back then. The key takeaway is that if your content doesn't repel a few people, it's not going to attract a few people either, because it's going to be bland. An analogy, some people like hot sauce. That's what your content should be. It's going to be too spicy for some. It's going to be addictive to others. But either way, it's black or white. Unfiltered truth number 2 is that most people quit, and I almost did. Growth is not linear. It's very chaotic. And it can be very lonely. It really takes a lot. And you just can't put it any other way. For most people, it's going to take so much effort. Now, we've got someone in Full Circle who has gone from basically 0 to 15.5K, and they started a few months ago. So you hear about those people, even me, myself, I'm like, man, I've been doing this like for ages. And the ego part of me is he's got more followers than me. And it's such a superficial thing. The point I'm trying to get at is that you see people like this, and on a good day, they inspire you. On a bad day, you go into this comparison trap. The point is, if you're looking at all of these people on a pedestal, your Dan Coes, your Hormozis, your whoever's, they're the top 0.01%. They are not normal. Now, if we dial it down to just this context of thread specifically, I'd say I'm not normal either. I post about posting. I read threads about threads, and I dissect the algorithm. Like, not many people do that. And despite all of that, I still think about quitting like every second Tuesday. It's brutal because you're doing so much work for no guarantee of return. And it's just this uncertainty about the future. And you contrast that with what's happening with work and a 9 to 5. It really couldn't be more opposite. The 9 to 5 is safe and secure and guaranteed. You have a paycheck and you can figure out how much of that is going into your groceries for the week or your mortgage or your rent, and you can just have a system. But this is not that. I probably should have called this harsh truths because they're unfiltered, but also pretty harsh. This isn't going to be for most people who are watching this in the long term. It can be very lonely. That's honestly one of the reasons why I created Saints College and then Full Circle. So it doesn't need to be so lonely and so hard. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you've been doing this for a while and you don't feel called to it, you don't naturally gravitate towards it, you don't naturally want to do it, don't. Okay, like, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Explore other platforms, be normal, raise chickens, eat carbs. If you're obsessed with this threads growth thing or just the platform itself and you really enjoy it and you can see yourself doing what you're doing today, every day for the foreseeable future, you are in the right place. An analogy to describe this unfiltered truth before we move on to the next one. Think about threads like a gym, but the gains are invisible. Like, you want to try and lose weight, you could see that if you're doing the right things and you're in a caloric deficit, whatever. If you're trying to build muscle, hopefully you see the muscle building. And that's one of the more superficial reasons why people go back to the gym and exercise. But it's like the pain without the gains for a long time. So the key takeaway for this unfiltered truth of how obsession is key is that the motivation to do it is not what you need. You need that drive and focus, which is similar to what we were talking about last week. How are we finding this so far? It's a different type of lesson, but considering it is college class 50, I figured it was important to share because it's a nice chance for me to reflect on the journey so far and to just talk about it in a more raw way. Unfiltered truth, social media is exhausting. For context, going back to 2018, I was just about to finish my last year of my undergraduate degree in law and about to start my master's in law. At that point, I was seriously depressed. I'd just gotten back from exchange, had to go through an unplanned pregnancy. And I was 21, 20 maybe. There was so much going on all at once. And it led me to the point where I went cold turkey off social media. I was thinking, okay, life's really hectic right now. What is something I can do to create some mental clarity for myself? And that's what I did. Overnight, my life became simpler. My mood got better. My brain felt quieter. I'd been building up my own Notion second brain. I had so many ideas in it, but I felt like I'd had this plan of writing them in a memoir when I was 90. But I thought part of this documentation and this journey is actually sharing it. There's something about putting it out there with people that makes it more special. And that was my theory, at least. So then when Threads came out, I was like, this is a sign. Let's give this a shot. And since then, it's been 21 months. Here is what I've learned. Social media is still fucking exhausting. But Threads, I would say, is the least exhausting. Instagram, tried it. TikTok, tried it. LinkedIn, didn't take long for me to figure, like, quit there. X, tried it. And I do think Threads is the best, obviously. But it's still really exhausting. And I'm going to get into the specifics of that in the next Unfiltered Truth. The key thing I really want to drive home about this landscape that we live in is, honestly, I did notice and have noticed a negative shift in my overarching mindset since social media came back into my life, because it was 3 to 4 years with basically nothing. But it's not all bad, because I'd say my best friends are now the people on this call, people in Full Circle, the people I hang out with each day. Like, that's where I'm at, because I have such a genuine interest in what everyone's doing and we just get each other. I couldn't have one without the other. I couldn't just be off Threads and not have all of these amazing connections and feel like I'm not alone in the world. It's not just this black or white thing. There's a lot of gray area here. And honestly, I don't know if there's an answer to this, but that's the point of this class. It's messy. It's an unfiltered truth. It's exhausting, but it's also really worthwhile and meaningful. My key takeaway here, like, for me at least, I operate in extremes for better or worse. It's just how I'm hardwired. If I'm going to reach that limit and see what I'm capable of, I'd like to do it towards something that is really meaningful to me. For me, that's what this is. College class, Saints College, Full Circle. And hopefully you feel the same way. Coming back to that other lesson, if you don't feel that way about Threads because of how much time it takes, think about what that thing is. What is that meaningful pursuit that's going to be for you that you're willing to put the really hard yards into? The unfiltered truth, number 3, social media is exhausting. Threads is still exhausting, but it's just worth it. Now, this one I'm sure we can all relate to. It is the unfiltered truth number 4, and it is engagement is digital foreplay. What do I mean by this? Think about the opposite. No replies means no reach, which means no happy ending. I realize that I've replied to approximately 20,000 comments on Threads. I could basically predict how people were going to reply to me. their post, they like your post, and they say something nice about it, and then you say, thanks so much. And then they go, no problem, or appreciate you. It's the same script over and over again. And you've done it enough times. And I know there are people on this call who know what I'm talking about. It's a script and it's not fake exactly, but it is the same manufactured pleasantries and they're repeated over and over again. And inside, you're just ironically crying. You're hating how robotic you sound because you've said it 50 times. Why have I kept going? Obsession. I know that this stuff compounds and I've loved the aspect of connecting with everyone. But all I'm really trying to emphasize is you do have to engage because it works. I've seen what it's like when you're not engaging. But, and this is something that I'm working on, know when to log off. And I know some people are going to be like, Lenny, you need to practice what you preach. So that's part of the purpose of this call too. Know when to log off because, yes, the engagement gets results, but at what cost? The analogy here is that comments are like compound interest. You just got to keep doing the same thing and keep investing and then see it add up over time. The more time you do it over, the better the results are. But you got to be really patient doing the same thing over and over. That is the unfiltered truth number 4. We've got 3 more. This next one, I call it life becomes content, but then content becomes life. So what do I mean by that? At the start, when you've just started posting on Threads, your content is going to be about your life somehow. But then as you grow, it's flipped and your life actually is about the content. For example, you've had one moment throughout your day and you've been doing something, you've been in La La Land and you're like, oh, that would be a good Threads post. And then you go write it down. Your life is about content. But when you started, that wasn't really how your mind worked because it wasn't that habit. But when you think about the posting, that's a habit. Your brain is naturally going to start being tuned in to anticipate posting. So then it's going to be thinking about ideas for posts. And that's what I'm saying here with your life is about content. Like you've had a fight with a partner, you've spiraled, the shower thoughts, they're the ones that I get. And you just get like the algorithm in your head and you run through these posts in the algorithm in your head. Let me be clear. This isn't all bad. And honestly, if there was going to be one sort of format where your life is all consumed by it, I'm pretty happy it's writing because if I was a TikTok creator, that would, I know for me personally, with these ideas always coming to me and the writing and being in the shower, having shower thoughts, it's built up a really good practice for me to capture all my ideas and to start thinking about, oh, okay, this was a pain point for me today. Specific example, the constant rewriting of hooks. It's like, how many times should you rewrite it? For me, like the answer is you could just keep going because there's no such thing. It's perfect. But as I was doing that today, one of my posts, it's like, oh, it's painful. And that made me think there's a solution to that. With every pain point or problem, there is a solution. The fact that I'm thinking about this stuff as I'm thinking about my posts, it's got me thinking outside the box. So what's the point? What's the truth here? What do I want you to take away from it? I would honestly put it down to one word, which is mindfulness. And I know not everyone's going to have an open mind to that. I guess that's the point. But I don't think I would have been able to stay so consistent had I not had a mindfulness practice every day where I'm consciously noticing my thoughts and over time preventing all of these confusing, overwhelming thoughts about everything that's happening in the day, including whatever's going on Threads, to really disrupt my own mental state. It definitely can. So be aware that at the start, you're going to be writing about your life, but then your content's going to be about your life. But as you keep going, your life is going to be about your content. And again, that's good for some cases, bad for others. The only tip I could give you there is to be mindful of it. Because if you're not, that's when it can start having some big problems in the rest of your life. If you were to look at it from a bird's eye view perspective, you'd be like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? But because you're in it, you can't see it. I have called, and it's something that we've all become very familiar with. It is which one is it? Yeah, okay. It is degrees are the ultimate unfair advantage. Let me explain. People trust titles like PhD or doctor because we're lazy. It's called a heuristic, which is a shortcut. The human brain wants to preserve energy. It's a survival mechanism. Over our evolution, we've developed these heuristics. Instead of going through the step-by-step logical process of thinking, okay, so I'm going to the doctor today, but in order for me to figure out whether I should trust what they tell me, I'm going to make sure that the doctor gives me their graduation certificate and make sure that it is authentic and genuine, and then do some background research on the university, and then ask if I can get this doctor's results at college. No one does that. So we take the mental shortcut of, oh, doctor, smart, follow. That is the case on Threads. It's insane. So it's an unfiltered, harsh truth, because you might be thinking, what if I'm not a doctor? What if I don't have a PhD? What if I don't have a fancy degree? I'm not a doctor. I have a law degree, but it doesn't really, at least maybe this is a limited belief, but so far I haven't really found a way to help with my Threads growth. So what do you do if you don't have the degree? You get the receipts. What do I mean by that? I would say my receipts are: started the first Threads newsletter, Threads community, created the Threads growth tag, invented the word friend, and then helped over 2,000 people inside of Saints College and Full Circle gain what would easily be hundreds of thousands of followers. I'm telling you this because I want you to trust me when I say, if you post, if you teach people, educate people, you take action, you do not need a fancy degree, because by that point, you will have credibility, receipts, proof, and that can be just as effective. There is still a way. And once you have the credibility, things get much easier on the platform, because in this age that we live in, the quality of information has become more important. If we see and know that people have the earned credibility, whether it's a degree, there's that mental heuristic of, well, they seem legit, I can follow them, I can trust what they say. If you don't have that proof, it's going to be much harder to gain momentum. Does that make sense? Okay. We are on to our last unfiltered truth. It's talking about the niche topic, because I know it's one that we've spoken about a lot. We always think about it. And it's this question of, what should my niche be? Should I have a niche, etc.? I've thought about this almost every day, because it's an important topic in the community and for what we're doing, because it's your path. My take is that the top 0.01%, how they get there, it's not luck, it's a decision. What do I mean by that? Firstly, I think we've been lied to, because you hear some people say, don't niche down. But every creator that you admire, who you might think they post about everything, started off by posting about one thing. That was their niche. The classic examples are Dan Coe doing web design, Ali Abdaal, productivity dude, doing Cambridge medical exams, or Mosey doing personal training. Everyone has their start at something specific. As they level up in the game of business, they have more proof to talk about. For me, I only spoke about stuff once I started getting some momentum. When I started, it's why it's so hard to start, because you don't have any proof. So you're figuring shit out and you're like, what am I doing here? What's my thing? It takes a while to get going. But once you do, everything gets easier. And since then, I've got a 613-day posting streak. I've been posting with a few explorations into other topics, because I'm only human. But basically every day, I've been posting about Threads. I'm not the best at this. So many people do much better than me. But I would say I am the most consistent. Because at some point, you realize that to eventually get to this point of talking about all the things you want to talk about, you got to start at something, at one thing. What this means for me is that if anyone wants to learn about Threads growth or just how Threads works, if they search anywhere on Threads, my name will pop up somewhere because there's too much volume and content since day one. People naturally find me and come to me. And it's earned positioning. If you've got one niche, one message, and you've got the one obsession. Obviously, this doesn't happen overnight. It does happen if you don't give up. Sometimes you don't know if you're progressing in the moment because you feel like you're not going anywhere. But if you look at it from that bird's eye view, you realize that you've actually come a long way. It's just hard to see it from above. If you keep going, chances are you won't regret a thing. The key takeaway for this 7th and final unfiltered truth is that if you want optionality, earn it through specificity first. Level up, broaden what you're competent to speak about, and that's how you get the optionality. Make sense? Okay, those are the 7 truths. To summarize, truth 1 is Bonnie Blue was right. So to put it simply, polarize or stay invisible. Now, you can do that by being controversial, vulnerable, consistent. Polarizing because, or controversies like you agree with it or you don't. Vulnerable because most people are not going to be vulnerable. It's hard to do. And then consistent, most people are not going to be consistent. You're polarizing yourself from everyone who isn't doing that approach. The key takeaway there, just pick a side. Express yourself confidently. Be mindful of your own internal state as you go. And don't radicalize yourself along the way. The second unfiltered truth is that most people quit. I've seen this time and time again. Like almost everyone that I started on Threads with is not doing this anymore because they're not thinking long-term enough. And that's why I really emphasize the value of obsession. The motivation can only get you so far, but if you've got the natural interest, the curiosity, that is your source of unlimited fuel. The third unfiltered truth, all social media is exhausting at some point. Whether we want to admit it or not, I would just say that Threads is the least toxic and the least exhausting because you do really get that sense of connection. Unfiltered truth 4, engagement is foreplay. If you don't engage, you don't get reach, you don't get any happy ending. It is a fact of the platform. Engage like your rent is due tomorrow, but also it's not the end of the world if you don't make rent. You're not going to die. Truth 5 is at the start, when you start putting content online on Threads, it is about your life. But as you go down the journey more, your life is about your content. Key takeaway, note to self, don't forget to actually live. Second last unfiltered truth is the top 0.01%. It is earned and it's not given. You can earn it. The easiest way, because of the heuristics, those mental shortcuts, is to be a doctor, be a PhD, have some fancy degree. Now, that's going to get you a long way very quickly, but obviously, it can take a decade to be a doctor. So what can you do instead? Do the reps, get the credibility. Once you do that over a long enough time horizon, the credibility is just as good, if not better, than the fancy degree. So there is still hope. And then finally, the 7th unfiltered truth is that specificity wins. If you want to have the optionality, you need to have the specificity. Start by talking about one specific thing first, level up in the game of business so you can venture out after. Now, those are the 7 unfiltered truths I have learned over the last 21 months on Threads, and it's been a wild ride. I'm not quitting anytime soon. I still love doing it, but it's really important to talk about this stuff because we don't talk about it enough. This side of it is a big part of it. You can't really separate one from the other. Your mindset, your energy levels, whether you're feeling lonely or isolated, it's all a part of it because putting yourself out there online is really hard. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the change of pace for college class 50. And now to wrap up, I want to address what I mentioned at the start, which is that $200 test that I did. So let me take a sip of water and I will close that loop for you. All right. Please let me know in the chat through reactions if you were aware that ChatGPT has a $200 USD per month pro plan. Danny, George, Angelica, I'm guessing that's a like, what? Sam, yep, cool. You guys know. All right, so I bought it. It is really three main things that are different about it. You get O1 Pro, which is O1 is its probably most capable reasoning model. And then O1 Pro is just that on steroids. It requires a lot more compute. It takes maybe 3 to 4 minutes to generate a response compared to just O1. I really wanted to test that because I'm like a heavy user of GPT by now. I also wanted to test Operator, which is the agent, still in beta. I love deep research and I wanted to get more tokens for that. But relevantly, I wanted to conduct a test. The test was Pro Threads GPT. Self-explanatory. It is the GPT that I've trained based on all the viral posts in the hookbook inside of Saints College, alongside many others. Basically, imagine me teaching a custom GPT, a 10-year-old, how to grow on Threads from first principles. This is a hook. This is the middle part of a post. This is what I call the help, the bottom part, etc. It knows everything. And then what I did was I had a prompt and I told it to generate a synthesizer post for me, which is distilling a bunch of insights. What I did was like put the same prompt in to O1 Pro O1, which is like the kind of dumbed down version, but still very smart. And then Threads GPT, which is, I think it's trained on 4.0. Maybe someone could let me know in the chat. I'd say I've probably spent like a couple hundred hours at least over the last year or so training Threads GPT. But then with O1 Pro and O1, like to train those models on at scale costs OpenAI like hundreds of millions of dollars. And because they're going through a multi-step reasoning process to understand every little thing that you're asking it. So naturally, I was curious, like, what's going to happen here? Same prompt, same conditions. Then what I did is copy and pasted the responses from all three, the long form posts from O1 Pro, from O1 and Threads GPT. I put them into new chats with no prior context, and they were anonymized. This is Threads GPT. I had version 1, version 2, version 3. And I put that into a new chat for 3 different models. One was another custom GPT called Post Roaster 3000. You could probably figure out what that does. It's trained on every post roast transcript that I've done. Then I asked O1 Pro again in a new fresh chat, and I asked O3 Mini High, which is like the most state-of-the-art one at complex logic and reasoning. Again, all anonymized. And then I asked it to rank all 3 responses from O1 Pro, O1 Threads GPT. So let's say if all 3 responses of O1 Pro ranked number 1 across all 3 of the different chats, that would have a score of 3 out of 9. So it's like golf, lower is better. If it was ranked 3rd across all 3 responses, then it would have a score of 9, and that's the hypothetical lowest score. So that would mean that O1 is the worst. And in the first hypothetical, it would mean that O1 is the best. So now that you know how I went about it, the results, attention. What do you think it was? Anyone in the chat? Oh, yeah. Okay, Sam. ThreadGPT came out on top, I bet. Carol, agree with Sam? Anyone else? Okay, because consistency is key. Okay, you guys are right. ThreadGPT won. It got, ThreadGPT was ranked 4, ranked first in 2 out of the 3 responses and second in the third one. So 1 + 1 + 2, 4 out of 9. And then just standard was 6. And then Pro was 6 or 7. The most expensive one was not only not the best, but it was actually on par with being like equal second or the worst. So what are my takeaways from this? Obviously, it's a huge flex for ThreadGPT because it's amazing. And I wanted to see how it stacked up to a general model, but one that is much more capable and competent. Secondly, you can create something like this for yourself. You don't need to put hundreds of hours into it to get a decent result. How would you do that? Not the purpose of this lesson. Take screenshots of viral posts that you have done or that you really admire. Ask GPT to distill key insights from it. See how you go. The outputs that I got from the $200 model, they were really good and they were novel, but they didn't know threads. I was shocked because I thought it would be better. So am I going to be keeping that subscription? I don't know. I need to do more deep research, but I found that experiment very reassuring because that ThreadGPT is my baby. And it is available in the classroom inside of Saints College. There's a one-time payment. You can check it out. I believe it's $199. And then we also offer that inside of Full Circle. When you join Full Circle, you get ThreadGPT for free forever. To bring this class to a close, College Class 50, the kind of question mark here. Yeah. I'll come back to that. That's an interesting point. And the question I put here is to post or not to post. We've spoken about the 7 unfiltered truths. Threads can give you great reach. It can be a great source of revenue. It can give you a lot of mental clarity, and it can give you a lot of friendship, as it has done all of that for me. But it can also kill your weekends, make you question your identity, and fry your nervous system. There is no such thing as a free lunch here. Really, what I'm trying to get you to do is to choose wisely. If you are going to do it, don't half it, don't play it safe, and don't regurgitate the safe takes. It's easy, but the easy path is not going to be the path that gets you the best results. Say what you mean, show up like it truly matters to you, and it's not just going through the motions. I know that's hard, but if you stick around long enough, you become undeniable for whatever you stand for. Threads will reward you, but only after it has tried to break you. That is it for College Class 50.